We're going to talk a little bit about what probability is. Most of you have some exposure to probability from 5th grade, I would think. I've never heard of like probability from a mathematical standpoint. If you haven't, make sure you tell me. Okay. No, like really probability. Y'all should have done probability in class. Did you not, Sasha, in 5th grade? Who did not do any kind of probability in the 5th grade? Okay, cool. Okay, so that'll give me an idea of what to do. Today we're gonna start off kind of slowly and just talk about, generally speaking, what probability is, what it looks like, what the differences are between odds and probability. You have a couple of worksheets to do, and then that's it. Once you get yourselves packed up and you're kind of doing whatever it is that you wish to do, as long as we remain relatively chill, because I'm having to separate some things for the STAAR test for next week. I am going to bring you back a little bit early before I send you off to your next class, because I want to talk about what next week looks like for you guys on Tuesday and Wednesday, where you're going to be, what you're going to be doing, all that kind of fun stuff. Because you're not together, you're all kind of spread out. So I have a list, we'll go over the list, and you'll kind of be able to write down, where you're beginning. The most important thing is really just to understand where you're supposed to report Tuesday morning first, because then you're traveling with that group all the way throughout the day. Okay? So they're starting you with a particular group on Tuesday and Wednesday morning, and you're going to rotate to 4 different classes, math, science, language arts, and social studies throughout the course of the morning until the 7th and 8th graders are done with their STAAR test. And then you'll do your regular rotation, 6th period and 7th period. So you will lunch with the people you're rotating with. Christopher? Yes. Jonah? Basically, it's not exclusively alphabetical, but it's more alphabetical than anything else. Okay? Tara? In your rotation? That'll be up to your teachers. Yeah, what you do 6th and 7th period is up to whoever you have as 6th and 7th period. Okay, yeah.
Will we be missing like our JIT and our elective class?
Yes.
So we don't need to
Yeah, you can verify that with if your elective class takes place 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th, you won't be having it on Tuesday or Wednesday. Nolan? Nolan? Yeah. What if you're, yeah, you have to talk to that teacher. Okay? Yes. Guys, yes, I'll say it one more time. Your 6th and 7th periods you will be going to. What you do in those classes are kind of up to those teachers. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay, so we'll go over that towards the end. I'll bring you guys back a little bit early so we can go over that. What I want to talk to you about is what probability is. Probability, so that you know, is where you talk about the likelihood of something happening. Probability is probably best defined as the likelihood of something happening. I'll give you a very, very simple example. If you are flipping a coin, there are 2 potential outcomes. What are those 2 potential outcomes? Heads or tails? If you are flipping okay, shh, guys, we're not doing that the entire class period unless you want homework over the weekend. Want homework over the weekend, Christopher? Okay, then I would just sit there. Plus, you owe me a worksheet that's late anyway, okay? So you want to get through this so you can get on that work that you missed yesterday. So the 2 things that may happen when you flip a coin are heads or tails. So what we would say is that when flipping a coin, the probability of getting heads is 1 out of 2. Is 1 out of 2. Because out of that set of what might happen, heads or tails, heads represents 1 of the 2 possible outcomes. Heads represents 1 of the 2 possible outcomes, and you write it as a fraction. You write it as a fraction. You can't say that the probability is 1/2, but most people just say the probability is 1 out of 2. It helps you kind of remember that the bottom always needs to be the total. Give you another example. Say we are going to roll a number cube, roll dice, okay? And I asked, What is the probability of getting a 5? It is 1 out of 6. Because 5 represents only one of the 6 possibilities when you roll a dice. That is simply probability. That's it. That's all it is. Yes, sir.
You put like, what is the probability of getting like 1, 2, and 3 on the dice, and then it'd be like 3 out of 6.
It would be. If you said, what's the probability of getting 1, 2, or 3, 1, 2, or 3, then it would be 3 out of 6, which then simplifies, by the way, to 1 out of 2. Make sure you simplify your probability for me. Don't leave it unsimplified. Now, there are a few things that I need you to kind of get when you're looking at this, and you really do need to pause for just a second when you read it and make certain that you've identified how many times, well, what the total number of possible outcomes is. That goes in the denominator. And how many of those outcomes represent what you're looking for, and that would be in the numerator. That's how, when you ask, like, what is the probability of rolling a number greater than or equal to 5 when you roll a dice? Well, you ask yourself, what's the total number of possible outcomes on a dice? 6. That's not what I asked you. I asked out loud, what is the total number of possible outcomes when you roll a dice? 6. How many of those possible outcomes are greater than or equal to 5? 2. Therefore, that is where you start. And then you would simplify that to 1/3. Everybody get probability? And they can have more advanced probability questions, like things that you have to really think about. If I said, if I put like one little letter tile for every letter of the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to Z, one little tile, like in Scrabble, in a bag. And I said, what is the probability, let's stick with, let's do Tara. And I said, I want to find out, we'll come back to you in just a second. I want to find out what the probability is of drawing out a letter that happens to be in Jackson's name. Well, so we would say, okay, so it's Jackson. So the probability would be something out of 26, because there are 26 letters in the alphabet, right? And it would be 7 out of 26. Can that simplify? It cannot. If I said, what is the probability of drawing a letter out that had Tara's name in it? Christopher? It's 3 out of 26, because the A repeats itself. In her name, T-A-R-A, it's 3 out of 26, not 4. Not 4. So you do have to slow down a little bit and think about what you're being asked. Does that make sense? Any questions on probability and how it's configured? This is called simple probability. We're going to start here, and then next week we're going to go into a little bit more advanced probability. Now let's talk about odds, because odds are kind of a different thing. If you ever go to Vegas, decide to become a gambler, or go to the boats, well, I think it's pretty smart. I'm going to become a riverboat gambler. What do you want to be when you grow up? A riverboat gambler. There are a lot of poor gamblers in the world, by the way. Broke. There are a few. I don't know a lot of them. I don't actually know anybody who's a professional gambler who has a lot of money. I see them on TV, but I honestly don't actually know any of them. So I'm just suggesting it might be more rare than we think. So let's talk about odds, the way odds works. And to do this, we'll use probability as an example, because there is a difference between the probability of something happening and the odds of something happening. Let me kind of explain the way that this works. Again, let's go back to our number cube, because I like the number cube thing. You know what? Let's use the Jackson name one. Okay? Andrew! Hi. Okay. So we're going to use the letters in the bag, the Scrabble letters in the bag scenario one more time. And if I said, what is the probability of picking Jackson out of a bag of letters? That's kind of funny. Ta-da! Here it is. If I say, what is funny? Let me go, let me go. It's kind of funny. It's a little Willy Wonka. So if I pick Jackson out of a bag of letters, the probability we determined was 7 out of 26. Agreed? Well, no, but that's not as funny, so just stay with me. Mine's funnier. Okay? So if I say, what is the probability of drawing Jackson out of a bag of letters, I say it's 7 out of 26. What is the probability of drawing a letter that is not in Jackson's name? 19 out of 26. By the way, that is called, so that you know, that is called the complement. I did not. That is called the complement. That's called the complement of a probability. The complement is the probability of something not occurring. Complement is the odds of the probability of something not occurring. Okay? And you notice it's not spelled like compliment. It's called complement. It's a complement. Okay? If I say, what are the odds of doing this exact same thing? If I say, what are the odds of doing that exact same thing? It would be 7 to 52. It is the odds of something occurring divided by the number of opportunities of it not happening. The number that it could happen over the number that it is not going to happen. Okay? So the odds of drawing Jackson's name out of that same bag, the odds of drawing Jackson's name out of that same bag would be 7 out of 19. So, I'm sorry, 7 to 19. 7 to 19. That's exactly right. Yeah. And you would actually simplify that. And by the way, you could also, sometimes they actually express odds as a decimal. Sometimes they actually express odds as a decimal or a percent. And to find the decimal of this, what would you simply do? 7 divided by 19. Okay? What are the odds of us not getting Jackson's name? 19 to 7. 19 to 7. So what that means is, when we were talking before, and they said in Vegas, and I'll get to you just a second, Jonah, if they said the odds of so-and-so making it to the championship are 4 to 5, that's not 4 out of 5, it's 4 out of what? 9. It's 4 out of 9. Do what? 4 out of 9? Eh? It depends on how much you're betting and how much you have to lose. Yes, they do. And by the way, that's an excellent point. Jackson said, so odds basically get people who don't understand the math to spend money. That's exactly what it does. It's exactly what it does. Because if you see that the odds are 7 to 11, and you're thinking, well, that's better than half. No, it's not. 7 to 11 is 7 out of 18, which is not half. Okay? So understand the difference between probability and odds. Do what? Half would be 7 to 7. That's exactly right. Could you have odds that are greater than 1? Absolutely you can. What are the odds of getting heads or tails when you flip a die? 2 to 0. Oh, very good point. It's like saying when they say letter 3, when you're like going through a test and the teacher will say, okay, turn to letter 3. Right? No such thing. So exactly right. So when you're flipping a coin, the odds of getting heads or tails is 2 to 0. Because the probability of getting heads or, how many times can you get heads or tails when you flip a coin? How many different outcomes meet heads or tails? How many do not? 2 to 0. See what I'm saying? Do not quite.
How many times is he going to get, like, head or tails?
I bet you said
If I said, what are the odds of getting 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 when you roll a number cube? 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Well, how many of those sides have 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6? 5. How many do not? 5 to 1. It has to add up to how many possible solutions, which is why 2 to 0 happens on the flipping a coin.
Oh, I was confused. I thought you said one or the other.
So, which means, what is the probability of doing the same thing? 5 out of 6. Remember the difference. Odds are 2, probability is out of.
Same difference.
No, not, because one's odds, one's probability.
Same difference.
No, it's not.
You get it?
Yes, I do. That's funny. Good for you. Yes.
Could there possibly be odds like 3 to -1, or is that just so that people look against other people?
You can't have negative odds.
Okay, 'cause that would be kind of funny.
Okay. All right, so here's what you got. So you've got 2 worksheets today. One is a 1-pager, which will not take you very long at all. One is a 2-page, which is probability and odds. The probability and odds is due on Monday, but you should easily finish today. The simple probability is due today. Any questions? Remember, we'll come back. I'm going to get the groups, and we'll go over the groups in a second.